Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the sixth meeting of the Budget Review Subcommittee on Economic Development, Tourism, and Environmental Protection. At this time, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Harper Angel, Senator Smith, Representative All,
Here.
Representative Bray, Representative Gentry, Representative Hart, Representative Lockett, Senator Bledsoe, Senator McDaniel, Representative Petrie, Representative Reed, Representative Weber,
Here.
Chair Boswell,
Here.
Co-Chair Fugit.
Here.
Okay. At this time, I think we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, and Representative Fugate will lead us in a prayer. I'll lead. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, thank you for a safe trip in this morning. Thank you for your blessings. Thank you for the opportunity, Lord, to serve you and to serve our people of Kentucky. I pray that you bless this committee, the staff, and all that work hard to see things go on for the state. Give us your wisdom. Give us, Lord, your knowledge, and may we make good decisions for all of our people in Kentucky. Bless our country. Bless our state. Bless our people that are hurting today. We'll thank you for it. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Each member has a copy of the minutes, but there's not a quorum, so we'll pass. We'll pass. We'll pass on that. Oh,
Does that make it a quorum?
okay. Well, today we have a presentation from our Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, and we have the chairman, Mr. Rich Storm, here with us today, and we'll let him come forward to be sworn in. And if you have other people that will be coming forward, as they come forward, we'll have them identify themselves on the microphone and then begin your testimony. Let's see. Now, the minutes here, my information says you can hold your questions to the end of the testimony, but I think I may change that a little bit today. As we go along here, we may have some questions, and I'm perfectly willing to entertain those questions as we talk about each of these subjects, not necessarily, and then if not, we'll wait to the very end. So I think we need to swear in the witnesses. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. At this time, I'd like to swear in our presenter. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please proceed.
Well, thank you all for having us here today. And Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the invitation to be here today. I think it's always good to be able to talk about an agency that I personally love, an agency that I think adds a tremendous value to the state. And so two things I want to preface today is it's always good to share the good news of Fish and Wildlife. I will say some of the dates that I have with short notice. Some of these dates I was disappointed that we couldn't get up-to-date information in terms of some national figures and things of that nature, but we do federal studies on about a 5-year cycle. So some of this dates back to pre-pandemic, and it also dates back to pre-inflation. So as you all know, a great deal of what we do has taken a big impact, but the good news that I can share with you is we haven't raised our prices, and so we've remained static during that time, and so we're thankful for that. But I want to start out and just say we're the home to the world record smallmouth bass. We have the largest elk herd east of the Rocky Mountains. We've got a world-class mollusk center right here in Frankfort. We've got a Salado Wildlife Education Center that you all can visit on our campus. We have 3 hatcheries. We have world-class deer and turkey hunting, and we have 3 conservation camps. And I know that's a lot of information, but just as an overview, and I look forward to telling you about those things. But the main thing today I want to tell you is we are in first place in natural resources in a state where we're not often in first place, but we are when it comes to our outdoors, and I believe that. I want to give a big thank you to my staff for helping us prepare this presentation, but it's my honor today to have a few folks that I'd like to introduce. We promoted a new colonel internally, which creates a chain of promotional opportunities. And so today I have Colonel McQuarrie, if you might stand up for us. And I've got Major Greg Watts that's with us today. And so these guys are new on the job. You're going to see their faces around. And these are two outstanding men, and it's a pleasure to have them here today. And we also have with us...
Well, first of all, we'd like to thank you for your service and welcome aboard.
And then we have a supporter that came here today from Moorhead, which is a MSU alumni. The Congressional Sportsmen's Caucus has a local member out of Moorhead, and his name is Connor Barker. And so he's with good company and Senator Webb. Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, as a mission-based agency, I think that separates us a great deal from other parts of state government. And you all can read our mission, but we're proud to stick to our mission. But as we'll probably talk about just a little bit today, sometimes we do stray from that mission as it's necessary to do things for Kentucky. But we are proud of that mission, and that's what we focus on 99% of the time. So who we are, we're a diverse agency of researchers, PhDs, master's degrees, high school graduates. We have folks that do a little bit of everything. I mean, we've got officers, biologists, we've got educators that go in Kentucky schools, and I would say arguably we would have some of the most diverse staff in all of the Commonwealth. We have a headquarters here in Frankfort, but 120 counties is what we serve, and I can tell you I've been in all 120 counties since I've been here, and that's my favorite part of this, is getting out, meeting people, and doing the things that we do in the field. Something else I think that I would want to touch on, especially with this group, I really believe we've developed some of the strongest relationships that we've had in a long time with the legislature. We thank you all for what you all do for our agency, allowing us to do what we do. But the Department of Agriculture, we probably have, just as strong of a relationship as we've ever had with those. The Division of Forestry, we work with those partners on a regular basis. The Marina Association, we've developed a relationship with that group, and maybe in the past we didn't have such a good relationship. The KMCA, as you all know, all those folks that were regulars there, those folks are fantastic for us. The Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, TNC, and as Senator Webb helped us with the biggest conservation project in our history last session. The Sportsmen's Caucus, the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation, the Coal Association, Kentucky Farm Bureau. We have a lot of great partners, and I'm sure I left out plenty of them, but those relationships make us be able to do what we do, and we're thankful for that. So a few highlights from this slide. I won't read it to you because you all do have a copy. We actually do stock a little more than 5 million fish. That information may be just a little bit old, but people often ask us how much land we own. 165,000 acres to point that out, but keep in mind we have over 1.5 million acres of public land in Kentucky. Some of that is easement, some of it is as simple as an agreement with a landowner. Daniel Boone National Forest makes up the majority of that public land opportunity in Kentucky. Another thing to point out, your constituents may ask, how do I improve my own property? So if it's 5 acres or it's 5,000 acres, we will come out and we'll do that for free. We will give them a synopsis of what they can do. They can say they want more songbirds, and we can explain to them how we can make that happen, how we can help them with that. There are some funding mechanisms for that, but we just have a lot to offer. And then, as you can see, the divisions we have within our agency, very diverse. And many of you do know we have Kentucky Afield, the TV show. It's the longest running outdoor TV show in the nation. And I've heard statistics. It's one of the longest running TV shows with all the TV shows included in that. I'll make sure I'm on point here. I want to share a story with you because when Chairman Boswell asked me to come to this committee, how do we tie into this committee in tourism and the outdoors? So in my 4th year on the job, I got asked to go to the Cumberland River and go fishing. And I went fly fishing, so I'm a total rookie. I did catch a few fish, but the people that knew what they were doing caught a lot of fish. And I got to see an ecosystem that was one of a kind. 50-degree water, 55-degree water in the summertime. Eagles in the trees. Fly fishermen all over in the water wearing chest waders. We were on a drift boat. All these people get out there before daylight. And so you wouldn't see them in that community. You might see them later on that day. But we had a wonderful experience by going to the Cumberland tailwaters. It was just, again, one of the neatest things that I've been able to do as commissioner. But what I saw when I went is I saw country stores around that fishery. I saw Airbnbs, houses built all over that community for people like me to stay in because there's not a Holiday Inn Express on the Cumberland tailwaters. Enthusiastic people that they're taking their recreation dollars from work and they're going into rural Kentucky. They're buying trucks, they're buying boats, they're hiring guides, they're buying tackle. All this connects to an economy that I'll say in many ways is not even it's almost unseen. All the connection. So I get out in the water, I couldn't believe the number of people we floated by. I also couldn't believe how many trout we caught, which, by the way, the department stocked those trout. It's just it's a big business, and that's just a micro business of what we do. That's fly fishing in that little spot. But if you look at all these jobs, tens of thousands of jobs, 70,000 jobs related to what we do. We can't take credit for all that, but we're co-pilots in what we do. And so these numbers we're dating back to maybe 2018. So I could easily say, I think that number is going to be $7 billion in Kentucky's economy. I've heard the tourism economy's gone from 11.8 billion to maybe 15. That's some of the numbers. So we're going to be somewhere near half of that total tourism economy through hunting, wildlife watching, and we got a lot of opportunities that are in the hopper too. So if you look at the bottom, I think the highlight of this whole slide is $1. Every dollar we spend creates $84. So that's why we're in this committee. So if you look at the tax revenues, I think again the guides, the Cumberland tailwater story would tie to this, but think about the wildlife watchers. Those are folks that you're just not gonna necessarily know that they're doing that. They're not necessarily buying a license. You can't quantify how many people are doing it, but that is a huge part of the outdoor industry. And then how do they contribute? Well, they buy things that create federal tax dollars that tie into what we do. So bait and tackle, guns and ammunition, sporting goods stores, jobs, all these things are tied together. And so if somebody's a wildlife watcher, we do know there's a chance we can bring them into what we do. And so that's big business for Kentucky, and that's why you get a lot of calls about Kentucky Fish and Wildlife in your respective districts, because we have assets and we have operations and animals in all 120 counties. I'm going to the next. So this next slide to me is a very important thing for us to think about and keep in mind. A few years old, pre-pandemic numbers. I've heard updated numbers that fishing may be 12% instead of 13%, and then hunting is at 8%. But if you understand the way our license system works, you can buy a sportsman's license. So a senior in Kentucky can buy a senior sportsman for only $12, and they can do everything we do, including tags. So that means a lot of these people are the same people. So we can't add those numbers and get 20% out of that. It's probably realistically more 15, 16% of Kentuckians buy a license. I don't think it's concerning today, but perhaps for later. But if you would keep in mind, we're comparing ourselves to surrounding states in this presentation. So the participation rates there were very high compared to our neighbors. And so as we get through this, I want you to think about, let's just say that we're at 15%. My wife and my children, they support me. There's a lot of people in your communities that may not hunt and fish, but they support those that do. And so we're in the upper 60s and 70% of people that are strong supporters. And I think the latest survey in Kentucky was about 72%, if I remember correctly. All right, I got tiny writing here, and I'm at the edge of needing readers. If you look at our participation rates, we frequently use the number 1 million, that we have about 1 million participants. And as most of you do know in here, landowners in Kentucky can hunt and fish. They can hunt and fish for free. And so we don't have a free license, or we don't have a mechanism to quantify a landowner as an end user. So if you look at the statistics, there we go. We think that there's probably close to 1.5 million outdoor participants in Kentucky, and then the population's a little over 4 million. So we do have a little higher participation rate than licenses sold. But fishing is a huge part of what we do, and I think we probably spend a lot of time talking about the hunting side, and I think it's the nostalgia of a big elk or a white-tailed deer. And if you look at Facebook right now, everybody's killed a deer except you. But that comes with the season. But keep those numbers in mind, and then in your respective districts, it's probably going to be pretty proportionate that about 1/4 of your people are going to be pretty engaged with what we do. So how we're funded, we're pretty unique. We don't come here during legislative session and work with Representative Petrie and Senator McDaniel and try to figure out how we're going to make it through the season. However, what we do come here and we ask you all to approve our budget, and when we thank you for that. And it's important that we plan. And I can tell you, I got hired pre-pandemic, and when the pandemic started, I actually believed that we would have a reduction in license sales. And so I think sometimes we got to consider that things could happen and go a different direction. Maybe, I hope we're not in a war. I hope that something doesn't happen in the near term, but our license sales are pretty static, but it can change overnight. And so license sales are 48%. The one thing I would add to this slide that you wouldn't know, guns and ammo sales are still incredibly high. So federal grant dollars are at all-time highs. That doesn't mean that we just go out and spend more money to receive those grants, because we have to have a state match portion. And so even though those dollars are high, we have to be careful with the next steps and how we move forward. And so boat registrations, it's a big thing for us to have that as part of our budget, because that cash allows us to do what we need to do, but it also pays law enforcement to be on the water, because we're the sole authority on Kentucky waters. I think if anybody has any questions about this slide, we can come back to it, but I think that pretty much covers what we cover. This is a slide that I would probably ask you all to pay the most attention to. Strictly informative, but if you look, we're the only no and no on that board. And I find it interesting. I think Missouri and Arkansas both having state sales tax is a huge win for conservation in their states. The reason I think it's a huge win is everyone then pays for conservation. Everybody that goes through the state. So if I travel through Missouri and I buy something, then that sales tax will be paid for. Now my inside, this is my guess. How did Missouri end up passing a sales tax? I think it's Bass Pro Shops and some of the big industry that they have in Missouri. I think that they probably were the driving force for that being part of it, but it's 0.1% of their sales tax in Missouri. So many states are different than we are, but at the end of the day, we're all Fish and Wildlife agencies, and the majority of our funding is going to come from conservation, with the exception of Missouri. So something I've learned a great deal about is the mission-based and the 99%. I'm going to talk just a little bit about the 1% to start off here. So the bottom left picture on that slide, I'm there. You can't see me well, and you don't need to. Getting enough of it as it is. But that particular day, East Kentucky flooded, and I was on my way here. And when we realized how much rain they had about daylight, we shifted. We went in a different direction. And so we spent some time there. I'm really, really proud of my officers, my wildlife staff, all of our staff volunteers, what we were able to accomplish. And I worked with Chairman Fugit directly down there, and their efforts were kingdom efforts. I'm proud of what they did for their community, what they continue to do. But we were a part of that, and so the mission stopped temporarily, and we went down there and we helped out. And if you look at the top left picture, we had a special project going on in Western Kentucky for CWD surveillance, and we had, I would say, somewhere between 1/5 and 1/4 of our staff were in Western Kentucky when the tornadoes hit. And fortunately, none of our staff were hurt, but they immediately got up and they went to work to help out with the tornadoes in Western Kentucky. And so, again, that's non-mission stuff. That's what we do. That's who we are, and we're thankful that we get to be a part of that and that we get to help Kentuckians, and lots of good stories, and we can talk more about that later. But throughout an agency that is so mission-focused, there becomes unintended missions, such as Asian carp, invasive carps, what some people call them. We have coexisted with a multitude of people, most importantly commercial fishermen and industry, that have developed a way to make some lemonade out of lemons. And an option we had early on was to buy property, get a dozer, dig a hole, and bury these fish. And on one hand, they probably would have made financial sense. But on the other hand, we're trying to make use of them, from fertilizers to food, pet grade food, human food. Lobster bait has become a big use of Asian carp. And so this is something I'm really proud to be a part of, and again, a part of. We've had a lot of people who've done a lot of great work to get this done. And again, the biggest thanks go out to the people that took a chance on industry in Kentucky, and the commercial fishermen that go out and they work their tail off. Second part to this Asian carp is a bioacoustic fish fence. And I'll close out and tell you a little bit more about how you can help us. But this creates a barrier in the water that deters carp from going to the river to Kentucky or Barkley Lake. So this particular bioacoustic fish fence has worked. It's been a little more successful than what we thought it was going to be, but it's on a loan program. So I sure hope we don't have to give that one back. But it creates bubbles, sound, and what it does is we try to keep the fish in the river, in the Ohio River and Mississippi River. So how you all can help as a General Assembly, the first thing I'd want to emphasize is make sure if you need us, you ask us. That's something I love to work with people from coon hunters to CEO. It's good stuff, and our programs are good, our people are good, and glad to be a part of that. And so if you want to talk about hunting and fishing, I'm your guy. I'd love to tell you some stories about my life and some of the things that we've been able to do. But we're coming into holiday season, and you're thinking about giving somebody another tie. Well, we don't need another tie. Buy somebody a hunting or fishing license, and give them a tool that they can use to put in their toolbox, and give them something that they can pass on when we're gone. And so I would say that the 85% approval rating that we maintain, it's my job every day to remember the people that are never going to call me, people that just want to hunt and fish, and they want us to do our job, and that's sometimes is hard to focus on when you're getting calls from a tenth of a percent that have a special interest. But in the future, I think the ask that I'd like the General Assembly to consider is project funding. That probably would be a sigh of relief for Chairman Petrie to talk about that. Not annual appropriations that we need $14 million this year, 16 the following. Project funding. So last session, with the help of Senator Webb, we were able to, and we're about to close on, by the way, which we're going to celebrate that, but the Cumberland Forest Project, 54,000 acres, and the General Assembly gave us $3.87 million. That's project first appropriation funding that we've ever received. And so I can tell you those models exist. There's going to be property. There's going to be more large property available. I won't spill the beans yet on that. But that model will work, and it doesn't take it out of agriculture. It doesn't take it off the tax base. What it does, it gives the public opportunity to go places, and different places. It gives them diversity, and it creates tourism in Kentucky's economy. That $1 turns into $84. So project funding may be for law enforcement assistance, may be for law enforcement training. And Chairman Fugit was a former trooper, and he called on guys in the green frequently. He still does. Disaster response, we get reimbursement for federal programs. I think we still haven't received federal reimbursement for some of the things that we've done in the past, but we're working on it. But the bioacoustic fish fence, we really need 2 of those, and that's some big money. We're talking probably $25 million. $25 million with federal grants available, so we need a portion of that. Land acquisitions, fee simple easements like we did last session. I think that's important. But the things on the screen, taking somebody hunting or fishing, you're helping to pay for conservation. And Kentucky's a unique state because we are funded almost specifically through these user fees. And so I like that. And I think that the general appropriation route gives us an identity issue if we go that route. But I think if we're very specific and project specific, I think the General Assembly can see some big bang for their buck. So we saw a decline in participation on Barkley and Kentucky Lake when Asian carp first came onto those bodies of water. That was a tourism blow, and I wish I had some numbers that I could give you. but we've made a comeback because of a bioacoustic fish fence, because of commercial fishermen, and because of an industry. And on the slide, you saw over 11 million pounds have been pulled out in the last year. I can tell you, as little as I know about time on that water, I've been on there several times, but the locals know more. I don't see the Asian carp jumping like I did. And they're typically smaller because we're catching those that have been there for a while. We have commercial fishermen that have a unique skill set, and they're tough people, and they help us to achieve our mission. I would also say if you're thinking about going out and buying you a boat or getting outdoors, this puts families together in a time where we need that more than ever, to give people a purpose to go do something. And I can tell you this, I can't wait to take my daughters deer hunting. Modern Gun starts the 11th of November, just to capture them. Not because I'm worried about what we might put in the freezer, but just to sit with them, spend time with them. And I have so many stories about how people, found a purpose in their life. And our agency does that. And it's not about who you are, even where you're from. That opportunity exists. And for as little as a few bucks, you can go to the woods or on the water. What we do is a passion and a love of my life. And so to be a part of that is truly special. The people I work with are special. They're good at what they do. They're experts in their own subjects, and I defer to them all the time. And with that, I would entertain any and all questions, and I would even offer staff or anybody in the crowd to answer questions as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Storm. I'd like to say a few things. Well, first of all, this is also a passion of mine and has been since the time I was a child. Started out squirrel hunting, rabbit hunting, quail hunting. As I've grown up, I've been to South Dakota many times pheasant hunting, deer hunt, turkey hunt. I'm on a duck hunting lodge down in Henderson County beside the wildlife refuge. So I'm still very, very active, and this is something that's very dear to my heart. We do up here in Frankfurt, we do appreciate what you guys do. We appreciate the way you operate, that you're not taking state funding unless it's necessary. I do support this theory myself of project funding that you mentioned, and I do have a few questions, but I'm going to wait right now to see if any of the members have questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got two quick questions, Commissioner Storm, and first I want to thank you and your team's willingness to pivot when needed and necessary in our Commonwealth, and what you did during the floods in eastern Kentucky and your response to the tornadoes in West. And that's not typically in your agency's role, but it was needed in that time. And so I want to commend you and your agency's response in those difficult times in our Commonwealth. So thank you for that. When you were talking about the fence, you said $25 million. Is that $25 million a piece or $25 million total?
$25 million for each BAF system. I will get committee members specifics on what that federal part would be, which would be a large portion of that.
Okay.
It is the BAF we have is currently on lease. I do think it is a key to our success for that local tourism for Barkley and Kentucky. But it's also part of probably a bigger picture, people getting used to what wildlife resources and what invasive species do. And we could talk about autumn olive, bush honeysuckle, and we're doing work to fight invasive species all over Kentucky. And these challenges are new, but when you drove in this morning, you probably saw invasive pears along the roadway. That takes a niche of something that was native, and so we will have wildlife diversity issues with invasives. And so I think that if I was going to do my best to predict the future, we're going to have to deal with these consequences of decisions that we've made. And, we're an agency that's called to find solutions to these problems. But thank you for your comments.
Yeah. One follow-up quick. Commissioner Storm, we've had several of your colleagues throughout the interim come in and testify about recruitment and retention challenges in their agencies and with you guys and your unique funding allocation, how you operate. Are you finding any employment challenges around recruitment and retention in your agency? And if you are, could you speak to that a little bit?
So that probably two-sided here. First on employment, I'll go ahead and fair warn you, a challenge that you're going to see in state government is about 7 to 10 years from now. I have these excellent employees across the divisions that are trying to get their 25 to 30 years in to retire, and they're still young people, and they're strong people, but we're really struggling in that 5 to 10 getting people to commit to state employment. That I would say that we never faced that challenge in the past. I do think it's slower with our agency because most of our staff, that's all they ever wanted to do, and they are committed. I don't think we have a high level of turnover compared to other industries. But also on the recruitment side, how do we replace ourselves in the field, which is a totally different issue. And so I challenge people everywhere I go, replace yourself. And we focus a lot on kids. I mean, have you ever seen such a bass in all your life? It's not just about the kids, though. There's an opportunity. I bumped into a man in Bardstown. I think he was 75 years old, and his hunting buddy passed. And he said he was looking for a way to connect with outdoors. And he said, "Your website's awesome." I said, "Well, it is. It really is. But you may have a neighbor that you can get involved in something. Maybe they're a widow. Maybe they're struggling with their life. It's not just about kids. It's not male, female. We offer something for everybody, and so I think you're going to have issues with other state agencies in terms of staff before us. 7 to 10 years, we got some bigger issues because the opportunity and we've even lost people to federal agencies, federal U.S. Fish and Wildlife agencies, because they offer 100% work from home.
Yeah, we've had a hearing yesterday in banking and insurance and heard a lot of the same thing with some of our regulators in that space as well. So thank you.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Ball. I do have a couple questions to follow up on his question. One is, how many game wardens short are you? Are you short a few counties right now?
Well, I'm going to say we have game wardens assigned to every county in Kentucky. I would like to have more, but my main goal has been to take care of the ones we have, and then we'll focus on numbers. And I can tell you our last class that graduated was a special class. We just put those officers in the field, their training aspect in the field. We just put 8 in. I think the colonel could tell me exact numbers on what we have.
Currently, sir, we're at approximately,
We did-
Currently, sir, we're at approximately 116 sworn officers in the field.
Do you know specifically of any areas that you're short-handed right now?
Probably the area that we're shortest is south central and the southeastern part of the state as well, sir.
Okay. And one other question I have before we move on. Do the officers, the game wardens, obviously this is a very, very dangerous occupation. I know because I've had a lot of dealings with them, and when you're a game warden, especially if you're dealing with hunting, people always have a gun with them.
Yes, sir.
And so I've just wondered, Commissioner, do the officers, game wardens, and I don't know the answer, I really don't, do they receive hazardous duty retirement?
They do.
Okay. Is that,
I can't go back and tell you exactly how long it's been, but I can confirm it's been at least 18 plus years, but I think it's even greater than that.
okay, right. And
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do appreciate what you all do, Commissioner Storm and Fish and Wildlife Agency. When I was a young trooper in 1994, went to the hollers in Perry County back home where I lived. ran into Greg Watts, and he was a Perry County deputy, and so we worked the road together until Greg went on to Fish and Wildlife, and then we worked the road a lot together even after he was Fish and Wildlife officer. And drug cases that I had that I was investigating, Fish and Wildlife helped me on finding guns and with the canine unit. So they're a big asset to our communities, and they do more than just hunting and fishing during the floods. It's amazing really what the guys do and the officers do that are out there. And I appreciate Major Watts, he's a good friend of mine, and I just appreciate him. But all the officers that are out there, and the hunter safety classes with the kids. It's more than just an instructional time. It's a time where they get to know the kids and they interact with the kids, and it's really good public relations for the kids to be able to look up to them because they're so personable, and that's a good thing for the agency. When you talk about numbers and what is the magic number that if you could say this is how many officers we need, what would that number be? And then do you have specialized units like undercover operations? And undercover operations, do you have people that are assigned just to that, or do you have to pull them from their county duties or their area duties to go be part of a specialized unit? And so what would be the perfect number for, okay, these are 120 counties, we've got an officer in each county, but in a specialized unit, do you need more officers to man that so that you could not pull people away from where they're supposed to be?
We'll try to answer this together because I don't want to put him on the spot with numbers because he'd take as many as he could get. If I hit a perfect spot, I'd like to have 160 officers. That's through discussions I've had with law enforcement leadership. That's based on the resources, but let's keep this in mind. Let's say we did nothing but patrol the Ohio River. We could have hundreds and hundreds of officers just for the Ohio River. That the miles, the things that are going down the river. So the Commonwealth is blessed with what we have. But a quick add-in I'd like to throw is in Perry County, if we have an officer on the radio and he's working a fish and game violation and there's an emergency, it's their responsibility to respond. And you know that as an officer. And so that gets us out of that 99%, but that's our service to the Commonwealth. The special units, I'll let the colonel speak to that, but yes, we do have those special units.
Yes, sir. We've had specialized units for a period of time now. We just recently restructured and created a specialized section. But to answer your question, we do have a special investigations unit. In the future, we would love to see that grow. I think it's important that we have an impact on potential violations of commercialization involving resources across the state, and it'll be important to grow that unit to be able to protect those resources. That number, I can't tell you exactly what it would look like with respect to how many we would love to have, but we would love to see it grow. Sometimes we do have to pull officers from the field and work that area part-time. I think it would have a great impact, once again, if we could increase that unit. We have a K-9 unit. They are full-time K-9 units, but they're not in a specialized section. They're still in the field as well and answering calls within their counties. But I think we've been successful in our special investigations unit with the small number that we have. But like I mentioned before, to grow that, we could do a whole lot more.
Right, and I thank you for that answer. But again, so if you have a specialized unit if you're working a detail and you've got to have four officers to work that, then you may pull Perry, Breathitt, Leslie, and Clay County officers off their duty assignment to go do the specialized.
Depending upon the size of the detail, yes, sir, there is potential we would have to do that.
And I understand that being in state police, but I think it would be beneficial to you and to us if you would put some numbers together for specialized units. And what are the specialized units? how many officers do you need to do that, and then have that officers could put in for that specialized unit, and I just think that you need to get us the numbers as far as the legislature, so we can look at that and maybe strengthening the agency. I think that would be beneficial to the people of Kentucky, the hunters and fishermen, and then those that are violating the law that need to be caught. If I could ask a couple more questions, Mr. Chairman. As far as the elk herd, I live in the mountains, and the elk are obviously not as many as there was. Have you thought about maybe closing the cow season for a couple years, and maybe lessening the bull tags just to see it grow? I mean, back years ago, driving down 476 in Perry County and into Breathitt County, you would see herds of elk. I mean, they would be 25 or 30 animals beside, just in the big fields. And now I hardly ever see an elk. And I know they're being hunted more now, and so that would drive them back deeper into the mountains. But this is just an observation from somebody who I'm not out there in the mountains every day. But I think it would benefit, again, the elk program if you could close or think about closing or lessening the number of cow tags, so that we could see new life on the ground and to see it grow. Have you thought about doing that?
We actually, good timing for your question. We're not closing cow season, but we have just recently, the commission voted to reduce that number of cows taken, and we did want to focus on high participation for youth, that those kids could continue to keep those numbers inflated. But the allocation was previously 594 tags. It's been reduced down to 500 tags. At one point, we had over 1,000 tags that were given out, so we have taken precautionary measures to grow the herd. But also, I think a really good point for the elk program in general, the loss of East Kentucky habitat is significant. We have seen some bear predation, which we do think has some impact on recruitment, and minimal with other predators, coyotes. But our recruitment is not as good as what we thought maybe 5 years ago, and it's probably more related to the bear predation.
The 594 tags that are given out, is there that many animals that are killed?
Typically, we harvest around 200 elk per season.
Okay, so about half.
Yeah.
Is that number lessening as we go on in time? What did it used to be more, and now that percentage is less than it was?
The percentage is less, but it's slight. We do have some of the highest success rates in the nation. Our bigger issue with our Eastern Kentucky elk herd is finding the place to go. So we have all these acres that are available, but we have a guide system in place where guides tend to know where the elk are, which is all good. People need help. That's part of this tourism economy as well. But it's a little more difficult for an average Joe who's drawn, that knows nothing about Southeast Kentucky, to go do it yourself. And obviously depending on where they're drawn. But there's competition, and there's competition before the season even starts. And it has become a commercial activity to a degree. And that's just mimicking what Western states have experienced.
And one more question. Do you know the average age of a license holder?
I don't.
Can you tell me, is it 45 and above? Is it, what is the age, like the average age, and how do we get, kids involved in hunting, which is an awesome thing for kids to get away from the games inside the house, to get outside and enjoy God's creation. But I'd just like to know what's that percentage, or what's that age?
We can send you a message, but my guess is going to be in the mid-50s if I was taking a stab at it. And again, keep in mind, when people turn 65, they're on a senior license at that point. So, in terms of funding, which I'm not saying we're here today to tackle that issue, but $12 for a senior or disabled license, it is a factor in how we do business. So as that age creeps up, we're going to have people on a discounted license because the regular sportsman's $95 and has been for years.
Right, and your officers do a good job doing the youth hunts with kids during turkey season. Glenn Griffey and that group down there, that they do an awesome job, and so I applaud what you do, and I thank you all for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Representative Fugate. I do, since we're on that question, I got another question from Representative Weber in just a second, but I do want to follow up with his question about the youth. Youth hunting is something that's very dear to my heart, and over the years I've been able to take a lot of youth hunting, and I just want to make an observation and maybe just ask a question also. So, what year did the orange card come into place? Roughly.
Well, the original orange card, though, would have been in the 80s when it became a requirement.
I do believe it was in the 80s when it became a requirement. It was mandated currently for January 1st, 1975, where it's the law that you're required to have it.
And currently, if you look at the number of youth hunters that are participating, how does that compare to about the time that came in? Here's my own view, because I have personal experience about this. I used to take 10 to 12 kids on a youth hunt every year, duck hunt, years ago. And it got to the point where I had to buy their orange cards myself to give them the 1-year waiver. And what I have found that, unfortunately, I have 14 grandkids, and I've tried my best to get them involved, but they're busy, they have busy lives, and none of them have ever been able to get through the orange card process. And I've got a lot of friends who have children and young people who want to hunt, and they've never achieved that. And so my own view is, although I strongly support hunter safety, I'm concerned about how many youth that may not be participating because their family, there's no one in their family to help them through this process, and as a result, a lot of your young people don't end up hunting. So if you have figures about participation rates from, say, 10 years ago and today, I'd be interested in that.
One thing I can share with you, a slide that I guess wasn't included. In 2015, there were 23,000 youth hunters in Kentucky, and in 2020 there were 19,000.
Okay.
There was also a drop of a low of 18,000 in 2019, which I would say was related to the pandemic, but then a boost thereafter. And so we are seeing concerning trends with youth. And I think the biggest issue with it, to me, I think it's the family unit. I had 2 uncles that take me to the field. My father had family, friends. It's just like a big family of people that I grew up in, which was a blessing, truly was. And I believe today that one of the big challenges is who connects with that child to put them in the field, and it's, we're not as neighborly as we used to be, and I can see situations where neighbors wouldn't let somebody take their son or daughter afield to use a firearm. So culturally that's changed, but I really believe that the family unit is a bigger challenge than the effort. We reach people more broadly than ever through Facebook, through Twitter, through different videos, etc., through schools, camps, but that's still, we have so much competition. And one of the things I saw at our conservation camps this summer, this is probably not the terminology, but it was almost a detox in children when they got to our camps. We don't allow phones, and we don't have service at these camps. So the first 2 or 3 days, these kids are really struggling with that disconnect, and then it seems like then they get back to being kids for a few days before they go back home. And we're all seeing that in our lives. And so when we can get them disconnected from their phones, we can teach them things about their life. I think we can shape the trajectory of their life if we can get them in the field. We can teach them to do something. And we didn't talk about the culinary side of this, but it's it's the best stuff that you can eat on the planet, whether it's fish or it's elk or deer or quail or what have you.
I agree with you. I just think it's important to me, and I know it's important to you to make sure we do something to stop this trend. And I have my own reasons about what I think it is, but we won't go in there further today.
I will tell you something I'd like to add, and this is something I'm working on with Kentucky Farm Bureau, working on with the Department of Agriculture. But I would like to get connected with the FFA and have patches that FFA students can put on their jacket when they achieve things through Fish and Wildlife. So maybe it's an archery harvest, maybe it's they're on the bass team, but when they achieve things, connecting with those students. And so I think that'll be a nice little recruiting effort, and I think the kids will be engaged because I wanted patches on my jacket when I was in school. If I could have had a deer patch, that certainly would have been something that would motivate me to get to the field.
I think it's important to us, just, what I see, though, is that I'm more concerned about maybe kids that live in the cities, and so Representative Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm over here, Commissioner. Probably within the last year, driving on I-65 from, say, exit 102 north of E-Town to the Jefferson-Bullitt County line, I have seen about 5 bald eagle. And I was just wondering if you could kind of give us a rundown on what are we looking at in terms of the bald eagle population in Kentucky. Are there areas that have greater concentration? Because that was a fairly unique experience to see one of those swoop down in front of you on the interstate, having been raised in school that they were an endangered species and you only saw them at zoos and that type of thing. It's pretty neat to witness them in the wild.
So that's a great question. We actually could have led with that today and talked about how conservation works. So we're proud to say that in all Kentucky counties we have bald eagles, and I get probably every few months I'll get a picture from somebody. We have a bald eagle in Robertson County, or we have a roost of eagles in Bourbon County, which I got one of the coolest pictures. Eagles all over a sycamore tree one morning. The highest concentration of eagles would certainly be around water. My division experts, the wildlife division, could probably give you maybe a population estimate of what we see. But that's a great example of how conservation works. And if we hit rewind and we look at what we have in Kentucky, we just stopped stocking deer and turkey about the year 2000. It's just hard to imagine what we're talking about is so it's so current, so modern, but we take it for granted. And I was talking to the young man in the Sportsman's Caucus earlier, and he was talking about how happy he was we expanded crossbow season. It was a tough pull. It was a tough pull because in some places in Kentucky we don't have nearly as many deer. But as these populations change, it's just a resemblance of how conservation works. License sales works, habitat projects work, and the bald eagle is a great American story. And so just pay attention. You'll see them all over the state. But I'll see if I can get you some numbers related to what we think we have in Kentucky. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Representative Weber. I do. Fortunately, I'm in a situation where I'm out in the woods a lot, and I'm really impressed with the number of bald eagles we're starting to see around the state. But I'm also going to say that I have serious problems with the hawk population. Recently, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, I think, announced that the dove population in our state was down. I had a recent situation where I was with some guys dove hunting, and on the same field in the same day, 3 different hunters shot a dove, and before they could pick it up, it was harvested by a hawk. We've got we got too many hawks. People talk about their songbirds, various things are killing their songbirds. I can tell you for absolute fact, hawks are killing all of our songbirds. They're killing our turkeys, they're killing our ducks. We've got too many hawks. I know that a couple of years ago, the hawks were taken off the protected list by President Trump, and then the current president put the Hawks back on a protected list. And if we, from my own viewpoint, I don't like to violate federal law, but we've done it just recently in the case of medical marijuana. And my own view, if something's not done recently, soon about the number of hawks we have in the state, we're going to have to take some type of action because it's a serious problem. I've done a lot of out-of-state hunting, and I know a lot of people come in here. And how are we handling our reciprocal agreements? Just for example, Tennessee, if they charge a non-resident $300 if he's from Kentucky, then what do we do as far as what we charge a Tennessee resident coming to Kentucky?
We don't have any license reciprocal agreements, so we would charge a Tennessee native the same price we would charge somebody from Maine. That's something that we certainly could and would consider, but I'll say for each and every one of you all in your respective districts, a lot of folks keep saying we need to continue to raise our non-resident prices, and I think we can do that marginally, but I also think that, it's a big part of tourism, and we continue to see an increase in non-resident participation. And that's because we're in first place with our natural resources. So people want to come here. We can raise our prices. It may slow a few down, but at the end of the day, we're a destination state. And so I wouldn't be as concerned about anything except keeping people in Kentucky. So if that's non-residents, that's great. And if that's our residents, that's even better. I
would just say, for me personally, if I go to another state and they charge me an exorbitant number, I'm not happy if their residents are able to come here and hunt for a whole lot of that. So I understand. And this meeting really today is really primarily about tourism, because that's part of what we do here on this committee. And we do appreciate everything that you do to bring tourists in. And it's a huge, huge number, much greater probably than you could even put on paper here today. So we appreciate your participation. Do we have any other questions for the commissioner? I did one other question real quickly regarding the law enforcement officers. How many federal officers do we have in Kentucky? Do you know? Do we have federal law officers?
We do have federal law enforcement officers, in approximately 2.
That's it?
Yes, sir.
Well,